Welcome everyone to Real Property Investments. My name is Monica Jazik, and we are here on our Tuesday free webinars that we're going to be bringing every Tuesday, and we're going to be hosting a different Real Property Investment members team member. So this week we have Nick Lequier of Mortgage Wellness, who is jumping on for about 30 minutes to telling us all about the different happenings in the mortgage world. How are you doing, Nick?
Hey, Monica, I'm great. How are you?
So great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you start off by basically just telling us what really was happening in the mortgage world before the COVID-19?
Yeah, so, spring market had hit early, actually. So the real estate market had really sort of sped up. It was hot. What I usually say is that if we don't have our systems and our processes and our relationships down pat by, say, February 28th, we're going to miss the boat on the spring market. So in January, all of that had started. It was a busy pre-approval season. We're taking applications, we're meeting with clients, homes are being bought and sold. And historically, like every year, seasonally, interest rates fall in the spring market, right? So banks lower interest rates, they all sort of, they're all after market share. So we see rates fall. And that all was starting to happen when COVID hit. So, everything was super strong. Everything was very hot. Things were happening as expected pre-COVID. Now, COVID strikes and we see emergency rate cuts. So we can chat about rates. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But sort of, just to summarize, pre-COVID, everything was really good and as expected, if not stronger than expected, actually.
Right, because we have been in a low interest rate for some time, and I was really surprised how low the rates really were going. And, and you think that was in anticipation of the spring market, because everyone's been talking about this spring market. When the spring comes, the real estate market that already was hot is going to get hotter.
Yeah, and it's always a really interesting conversation to say, rates are going to go down, but inventory is going to go up. So, even though you're getting a lower price on the interest rate, you're going to pay more for the home because there's more, that rule of supply and demand always holds true, right? If there's more people after it, the inventory increases, but also the demand increases for that home as well. Now, really interesting, the opposite typically happens in the interest rate market, right? So, supply and demand says the more somebody wants something, typically the more expensive it should be, right? Like a collector car or a Tikamielmo or something like that. But typically what happens is this seasonal effect sort of applies to interest rates. And as more people are trying to get mortgages, the price of them comes down, meaning the rate on them comes down. So seasonally, we typically see lower interest rates in the spring, actually. So that was starting to happen. Now, enter COVID and emergency rate cuts and everything else. And we're in a, sort of a little bit of a hold pattern for that, actually, on rates. Part of, as I mentioned to you on Saturday, probably one of the biggest pieces of fake news is that interest rates are, lower than they ever have been. Mm-hmm. They are still low. It is still very cheap to borrow money, but they aren't lower than they were before pre-COVID crisis.
Right. So they have gone up a little bit.
Yeah, the cost of borrowing and the cost of money is still ultimately very inexpensive. Rates are still floating around 3%, and that's still, a really great environment to borrow money, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, now, how have things kind of changed so far? Like, how has it sort of affected, investors who want to keep moving forward now? What are different things they have to consider in regards to getting a mortgage?
That's probably the bulk of the questions that we get in a day. And the bulk of the conversations that I have in a week, to be honest with you, is, how does it affect me and how do we keep on moving forward? So first and foremost, every single deal is adjudicated or underwritten individual of other files. So what that means is that every single one, it requires an exception of some kind, I would say. First and foremost, income is the most important piece of the puzzle that every lender is looking at right now. So income, both from, say, an employment income standpoint and also from a rental income standpoint. So is the flow of income going to sustain through the through the term of the mortgage? And most importantly, right now. So, is that person working? Are they deemed an essential service? Do they have a way of continuing to work if they're not, for example? And even if all those boxes are checked yes, it's like, okay, we'll prove it. Give me a letter of employment from your employer saying that you're working from home. Give me some bank statements showing that your income's still being deposited. So we are absolutely getting mortgages done, no question. But every single one of them is sort of, individually scrutinized, right? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, what about the people like, say before, say 3 months ago, I was looking to buy, had my pre-approval. Am I going to be reassessed?
Yes. So there's very specific rules, and you can feel free to reach out to me or another mortgage professional who can guide you through that. But there's very specific dates and steps that you have to look at. Okay. So if I was in a committed purchase, so if I had intent to purchase before the COVID crisis hit, you will get a mortgage, generally speaking. Okay. So even if you're laid off, if your intent was to continue working, your intent was to purchase a home, chances are you're going to continue to, chug along in the mortgage process uninterrupted and still get the financing on that property. So one of the reasons why realtors were deemed an essential services is so that people could complete previously committed real estate transactions. So if we're talking about like pre-COVID, one of the things that we have to look at is who purchased before the crisis hit, right? And a lot of the activity in the real estate market currently are people who are buying or selling who bought or sold before COVID hit. So, I, for example, went out and I bought a home and I hadn't yet sold my home. Now I'm firm on the purchase. I now need to sell. That's a new listing, right? Like that transaction needs to be completed for the wheel to continue to turn for everyone, right? So generally speaking, if you were in a previously committed deal, before COVID hit, you probably will not have any challenges if you're dealing with the right lender, the right broker, and those sort of things. Now, the people that are looking for, what I call new money today. So it's a new purchase, or they're looking for an equity takeout, or they're looking to, finance a new property or access equity in an existing property. Those are the ones that are being scrutinized, right? So do you have income? Is there a steady flow of rental income, for example? And those are the things that lenders are really focusing on today.
So you just mentioned about those people, sometimes people do for end users. I think end users are almost a little more, at risk than the investors, because we tend to live in properties that are more expensive and get bigger hits when the market does fluctuate. So because that's where the real drops in the markets are, kind of in these overinflated markets. So your houses are between, $900,000 to say $3 million, you're more likely to take kind of that dip. What about these end users who have, they've bought a new home, but they haven't sold their existing property yet? What kind of mortgage products would you have for someone in that situation? Or are these people, at risk of not being able to go through with their actual acquisition?
So, again, each one of those circumstances are individual, and we haven't actually, in all of the, many conversations that we've had, I actually haven't found a circumstance where the property hasn't sold, but they're committed to a purchase. So typically in situations like that, we look at what kind of equity is available in the home that they currently own, and what kind of equity do they need to lock into the new home. So for example, $500,000 home that hasn't sold, and there's $300,000 owing on it, and they bought, say, a $500,000 home that they need 20% down on. They need $100,000 on this home, and that $100,000 can be accessed out of this home. So, always individual, and we're always in a situation where we look at, can we refinance the existing home? Can we temporarily access the equity in that home to, bridge the gap and get them into the new home? And, because in your group, for example, we're always talking to investors, usually there's an easy solution to that. Like, hey, let's refinance it and rent out that existing home and then move on to the new home sort of thing. So I think, one of the other conversations that we're having very regularly right now is, what's going to happen in the real estate market in general, in terms of values. And I'm sure you're dealing with that every day right now as well.
Yes. Well, nothing seemed to happen so far, but we don't know. And people also get scared because they don't know. So people who aren't involved, they kind of have this herd mentality where They invest when everyone else is investing. And that's probably when you're not supposed to. And anyone who's taken upon themselves to continue to look for a property at this time really will notice that there are still multiple offer situations in all markets, and property prices at this time are not yet dropping. Now, that being said, history shows that sometimes it takes a couple years for real estate to feel that drop and feel that effect. So although right now, things aren't changing immediately, we do need to be well aware that this drop can occur, maybe not now, maybe a year from now, or even 2 years from now. So I don't think it means we stop investing, but I mean, it's just an extra consideration.
Absolutely.
But don't you feel like, in your experience so far, since we are in this pandemic and we are in a world of unknowns, in your professional opinion, is the mortgage lending world and the banks being cooperative to people? Do they want to see us fail, or are they really doing everything in their power to really try to help us succeed?
Yeah, so they are absolutely doing everything in their power to make sure that people are succeeding in their current situation. So where we're seeing barriers put up in most circumstances is people seeking new money. Those are the most difficult mortgages to get right now. So what we call an equity takeout. So, I was having a conversation today with a bank exec. It was escalated to him for approval. And it was an equity takeout where this person was looking to take equity out of their home. He had dreams of grandeur in the investment market. He wanted to invest in stocks. And banks are very unwilling to lend new money for the purpose of equity takeout, where there's not a clear defined plan right now. For example, one of the big 5 banks announced last week, they'll no longer finance a rental property where the down payment is coming from a home equity line of credit. So the down payment has to be from cash. So, I think, yes, absolutely, the banks are helping us and the banks are providing solutions. The trickiest ones that we're working on right now are mortgages where people are looking for new funds for investment purposes, or new funds for equity takeouts purposes, or new funds to invest in the stock market. Generally speaking, if we can show that the money is coming out of a refinance to be directed to a new purchase, for example, there's no problems on those files. If we can show that the money is coming out of a mortgage to be directed to debt pay down so that people can just live better and live easier and reduce cash flow or increase cash flow, reduce output right now, those files are being done no problem right now. Like, banks are really stepping up and making exceptions. I have one right now, he's a frontline worker in emergency services, and she's personal services, she's in healthcare. The ratios are totally out of whack on that file because she's not working, they won't use her income. That lender stepped in and said, give me confirmation that she's applied for the CERB, and we'll use her income. Meaning, her net income, for example, she's self-employed, her net income was probably 20,000. And the CERB, we know over a 4-month period, if she's applied and been approved for it, it's going to provide 8,000. So, really common sense lending where there's a solution at hand, right? So as long as there's a solution at hand, banks are being extremely cooperative. The more strategic stuff that we usually work on, can I refinance this home and put the money into another home? That's sort of a more difficult scenario right now. I think I'd shared with you, I'd reached out personally on a multi-unit property to a lender I deal with all the time. This is a 10-unit property. And I said, hey, could we get a small vendor take back on this property, given the times? And I think you probably read his answer, right? It was the opposite. It was like, actually, in good times, yes. Right now, no. So yes, at normal times, a VTB is allowed, but I'm usually in the case, usually in the case of a short flow, and et cetera, in normal times, exceptions could sometimes be made for a lesser amount of down payment. But right now, given the tough rental market for the next 3 to 6 months, we're limiting funds to existing clients or stronger, well-capitalized borrowers who can weather the current storm of having limited rental income. VTBs currently would be frowned upon. On all of our current commitments, we're requiring holdbacks of 6+ months of payments because of the uncertainty with the flow of rental income. So that's on big multi-unit commercial financing right now, but it all trickles down, right? So, where I thought, hey, great market to buy a multi-unit property, maybe there'll be some more flexible financing that can be, obtained. It was kind of the opposite, right? And I think you were probably as taken back as I was when you read that statement as well.
Well, commercial is going to be a totally different effect than the residential world, for sure. And as you know, because the mortgages are so different. And, especially in commercial real estate, which is plazas and more, business owned, when they miss that first payment, technically speaking, they don't operate under these LTB rules like in residential real estate where they're getting all these grants and all these favors. As a landlord of a commercial property, technically speaking, you could lock your doors on them and pretty much kick them out. Not that's going to help anyone in this circumstance, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the commercial versus the residential real estate. Now, those measures that the banks kind of are taking, though, I have to say I sort of agree on that, because some people are a little bit reckless. And I know that with our stress tests and our stringent measures that our mortgages, I know it's kind of painful for investors because we always complain about, how difficult it is, how we hit these ceilings, how it's hard to move forward, how we have money, but we're not able to invest. And I know you do a great job at solving these problems, but I really do think that the banks and the government are looking out for our best interests, so we don't end up having an effect like the 2008 US housing market, where people were over leveraged. And for people to now take out against their personal residence and borrow against that, especially if they're going to do something like stocks, which you know how I feel about stocks, Nick, they're very volatile, and I'm not a stock market fan at all. But people to take these funds out of that and to increase their payments when our funds are so questionable. I mean, the CERB is $2,000 a month, but it's only supposed to be for about 3 months, I believe. And that does not even cover the average mortgage payment for someone, especially someone in Toronto and GTA area. I mean, a lot of the times our mortgages are a lot higher than that. So I think that, it probably is best for people to borrow to invest in all these sort of things right now. You really do have to be strategic and make sure that, you kind of are, shifting things and focusing things around. Because I'm not sure if you've seen Robert Kiyosaki's podcast, but he has a brilliant economist that he is interviewing. And on this podcast, they're actually saying now that the housing market is never going to be the same as it was before because of this. There's going to be a total shift as the baby boomers are out of this market and now the millennials are in and they're not buying homes. And that now real estate is higher than it ever will be. And it's time to get out, pull that money out and sell. Now, I don't know if I believe that 100%. How about you?
So I think there's 3 trends that everybody's sort of, talking about and anticipating right now. So the first is a V curve where it just bounces right back. And everybody's very hopeful of that. The second is a U curve where the bottom is wider, right? There's a deeper catch basin in that bottom curve. And I think that as real estate investors, most of us are hoping for a U more than a V, meaning, let's see the bottom, let's experience the bottom for a little bit as well, so that we can determine if there's a strategic buy down there, and then let's ride the wave back up. And that's what I think most real estate investors are waiting for. Most homeowners and just general consumers are hoping for the V, right? So what goes down must go up. And then I think, economists, many economists, especially the one that you're talking about and referring to, are predicting an L curve where it just drops, and that's the new normal. So real estate investors and general consumers are hoping that that is not the case, obviously, because what we've invested in, we don't want to see fall and stay there, right? Like buying a stock that crashes and never comes back again, that the business goes under or something like that. So I think I'm expecting that U curve, and I think I'm optimistically and also modestly expecting the U curve. So it's going to go down. Right now it's very strong. very, very strong market. So I don't want to discourage those who have to purchase in this market from purchasing. Had a lot of those conversations recently as well. But what I want to do is properly, sort of advise and predict what I think is going to happen over the next 6 months, 6 to 12 months, which is a U curve. So we'll see a temporary dip in values, and then a nice gradual incline back to what we will find being the new normal. Now, what categories of homes are going to follow the most? That's still yet to be determined. We still have people purchasing, and I think the most proactive conversations and productive conversations I'm having are with people who are real estate investors who are looking at what equity could I potentially access in my property so that when we hit the bottom of the U curve, I can strike. And those mortgages are not being turned down. When I submit an application for, say, a Manulife One or a Scotiabank STEP or something that's mortgage and line of credit where somebody wants to access their equity but it has no plans to currently, those applications are being approved. No problem. If somebody has a $500,000 home and a $200,000 mortgage, for example, they could theoretically access a $200,000 line of credit. So those really good, productive and proactive conversations that we're having right now are my favorite. So Nick, I have 3 properties. I've heard your previous presentations, that rule of 5. I want to get to 5 properties. And I think the time to do it is at the bottom of that U curve. So let's go ahead and get prepared. Let's put those lines of credit in place so that when I see the right opportunity to purchase, I can act on it.
Well, right now, they actually are offering sort of things, even for business owners. And real estate can be a business. At Real Property Investments, we say that your property is your business. A lot of people are incorporated. They do have access to business lines of credit. And I know they won't qualify for this $40,000 grant. That's more for the actual businesses. But if you already have that line of credit established, aren't there specific lenders that are actually offering, I know RBC is, they're offering an extension, temporary extension of this line of credit that you are available and giving you more access to credit as well.
Yeah, so pre-existing credit, so those what we call collateral charges. So if you have a collateral charge registered on your property, meaning open available room to borrow, subject to qualification, we are seeing a number of lenders that are just opening that up. One of the commercial buildings that we own, we reached out and said, hey, it might be a good opportunity to do some needed updates on the property. Now we had construction that started before April 4th, so we qualify. Maybe now's a good time to do it. Do we take a leasehold loan? Do we extend our collateral charge? And we got a response back saying, hey, you're at 70% loan to value, we're registered at 75. We could just re-lend right up to the 75 without having to reappraise and everything else, which is a great opportunity. So yes, you're right. If you have commercial financing, you have business lines of credit, or commercial lines of credit, I should say, those are definitely opportunities as well. Just make sure you have a clear plan for the money, basically. Oh
my gosh, if you fail, now is the time that people should be strategizing and planning. They shouldn't be sitting there in fear and just being like, oh, I knew it. I knew that real estate's risky. I knew that real estate's doom and gloom. This is the time where you really have to assess your own situation. So if everyone that we're working with, first of all, we're starting with people with where you're at now. What are the emergencies that need to be put out? First, do we need to take advantage of relief programs? Do you need to waive payments now? Have you checked in with your tenants and monitored and managed all that? I think if you do prepare, if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And now is prep time. After that, you have to kind of get used to this new normal. How am I going to manage things so far? What access do I have? And how am I going to strategically move forward? Well, how am I going to plan, so this never happens to me again? Because I think Canadians, you've been to a lot of our presentations, and we always talk about those scary statistics, how people are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of people are living even below their paycheck. And all these real estate groups and these magazines, it's so fun to think, what if I can leave my job? Yay. Well, what if your job leaves you? And now we had, 25% unemployment rate as of last week. That means 25% of the labor force is sitting at home because their job has unchosen them. And that's the same amount of percentage of people who do not have savings. They are living paycheck to paycheck.
So, the most again, the most productive and the most proactive phone calls that we're having with real estate investors right now are a lot of those calls, I should say, start with, is now a good time to purchase? And that's a really tough question to answer because it's really specific to personal circumstance, of course. If I buy a rental property and it has a pre-existing tenant in it, are they paying?
Yeah.
And if they are, prove it, right? And are they going to continue paying? And if I'm buying a new vacant home where I need a tenant, am I going to be able to fill it, right? Are people looking for a place to rent right now? How am I going to show it? How am I going to do open houses? Like, is it safe, right? So the best conversations that we're having with real estate investors are proactive, so let's look at a long time forecast on this and say, what do I have to do to prepare for a purchase? So let's get the equity ready. Let's prepare for that dream of 5 homes. So I think you've heard me say on a number of different presentations, the rule of 5 says that should be your first goal as a real estate investor. How do I get to 5, right? Every bank in this industry will lend up to 5 properties. So, and fairly easily for a well-qualified borrower. It's everything after 5 that's challenging, as you know, Monica. So let's prepare for the first 5. Let's build a strategy. Let's get on a call with Monica and me, for example, and say, okay, great. So what do you have currently? I have my primary residence. What's your goal? I heard your presentation. I love the rule of 5, for example. Let's do that. How do I get that? Okay, so let's build for that. Step 1 is accessing the equity in your primary residence so that you have a line of credit available for that purchase, for example. If more lenders follow suit and don't allow you to use a home equity line of credit for your down payment, there's ways to strategize. Like if you withdrew from your home equity line of credit today and put it in a bank account for 6 months, it's your money. All of a sudden it's now cash and savings rather than cash from a line of credit. But if you are out searching and shopping today and found a great deal, we get those calls every day, found a great deal, how do I buy it now? The cart is before the horse, and those deals will get done, but it's not strategic. And will you get the best deal? We're not sure. Let's follow a strategic approach to this. Let's connect with a mortgage broker. Let's start talking about what's possible. Let's build that plan. And between you and I, Monica, we can put together a plan for just about anybody that has hurdles, achievables, and a timeline attached to it.
Absolutely. Because when you plan in advance, then let's pretend someone comes to you and they want to buy these 5 properties, right? But they don't tell you that. They just want to know how they could buy 1 property.
Yeah.
So by not disclosing what your overall goal is, I want to buy 5, it puts you in a precarious situation as the mortgage agent, because I know you'd always ask anyways when we create people's mortgage plans, what is your goal? But if you don't ask that question, you can easily out leverage someone right out of the gate by introducing them to the wrong lender or the wrong type of investment property. So maybe it's okay, you could buy this house, but it's way too expensive, but they could just have 1. But if they considered a different type of area and paced themselves slightly different, or even a different kind of investment model, then that would extend them to those 5 properties. And that's when you can kind of give them this 5-year plan, 5 property plan we're always talking about.
Yeah, and one of them that I did this week, I could only get the person to property 3, for example. So in the plan was, refinance your existing home, build equity or access the equity, purchase property 1, property 2, property 3, and the plan for property 4 and 5, it said right in the email, reconnect with Monica to discuss joint venture options. Because once you've done 3, people will start asking you how you've done it. And that's when you re-engage with the conversation with Monica to discuss, okay, so now how do I teach other people how to do what I've done? I have a proven formula, and that's what's going to get me to property 4 and 5, for example. So it's not, our goal is to get everybody to that 5 property mark, but sometimes we're stalled at property 1, 2, or 3, and there's other options for those people as well. But, my quote for the last couple of weeks is, Wayne Gretzky said he was never where the puck is. He always moved to where the puck was going, right?
Yes.
So, put that in perspective to what's happening today. The puck is here, right? So those conversations always start as, should I buy a rental property right now? And the answer is probably no. The answer is probably, where's the puck moving? What's the opportunity a month? in 2 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, right? So let's build a plan. Your group is all about that. So let's do some proactive planning and let's build the plan. You know, I had a call from a member in your group this week and they said, I'm laid off, you know, what do I do now? Like doom gloom. And it's like, okay, well, like the puck is here right now. We're not talking about that. When do you think you'll go back to work? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go back to work. Great. Excuse me. Where's the puck moving? What can we do next? Right. So change the conversation to what is the opportunity. And back to our original point, you know, is it L? Is it V? Is it U? Right. So people will tell you what their prediction is pretty quickly, you know. So that same person that said I'm off and it's doom and gloom, he predicted the L, right? So, okay, so what does that mean for your plan? How long do you think it's going to take for us to hit the bottom of that L? And at what point in that bottom stroke of the L do you want to purchase? Or do you want to purchase it all, you know? So I think it's just
if we ever did hit that L though, let's talk a worst case scenario. We hit this L, you know, what this could possibly mean is if somehow people are not putting their 20% down, they're not preparing for these things, they haven't locked in mortgage rates, you know, for 5 years, they're not ready to ride out the storm, that very well they could possibly have these underwater mortgages, kind of like what happened in the US, where the value of their mortgage is higher than the actual value of the property. Now, in your professional opinion, how, and I know this is totally a crystal ball question, but how do you think our government and our lenders and banks would respond to this? Is there something they would do you think, to accommodate? Or would we somehow, the government, push the market prices almost back up? Is this something they could almost create that false effect that they can prevent these values from driving? Because I know mortgages have been a real secret weapon to stop, to keep the real estate market moving.
It's emergency rate cuts. That's their maneuver right now, right? So, you know, people want, you hear this buzzword, consumer confidence, and how do they increase consumer confidence? They lower prices. So people spend money, they're confident, they're buying, it keeps the economy going, right? So, you know, the real estate market is not going to tank. And that's, you know, my prediction and everybody else's. Will there be opportunities in the L if that's what happens? Absolutely. But it'll be in specific categories like we chatted about. You know, it'll be townhouses, it'll be condos, it'll be high end, it'll be rural, it'll be a whole bunch of things. But banks are in this to help consumers, and the government is as well, right? So they're hand in hand. So there's like, I literally just got an email as we're chatting, like, how cool is this? So I have emergency service worker that I was talking about, the personal service worker. This is that same client, okay? So they're in an alternative mortgage. They're going to be in an alternative mortgage, which means that their interest rate's going to be higher for a couple of reasons, debt accumulation and some other things. But I just got this email that said, hey, we just launched a promo for frontline workers where we're waiving all fees. So usually in an alternative mortgage, as you know, you've had one, I'm sure I've had one, you know, most real estate investors have, there's fees. There's a lender fee. There's like a placement fee. There's an appraisal fee. They just waived all those fees. No appraisal, no lender fee, no setup fee, nothing. So they don't have to do that, right? But that's a real life example of a lender reaching out to help a borrower, right? And that's happening day after day after day. It's unbelievable.
Well, everyone is being accommodating. I've heard of even private lenders like deferring their entire payments during this kind of offering, the same thing, just like a normal bank would. Now let's pretend once again, as we get further and further into this and things are changing day to day, and let's pretend worst case scenario, the market drops, we go on this L. Do you not think a lot of these opportunities are going to rise from an increase of first mortgages, an increase of creative lending, an increase of more opportunity from that aspect? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, as a business, we are fortunately and unfortunately one of those businesses that are very busy through this, to be honest with you. I mean, like, people need money and people want money, and even real estate investors want strategic money. So we're very, very busy. Like I mentioned on Saturday, everything in the supply chain has just slowed right down. It takes longer to get an appraisal. It takes longer to meet with a lawyer. Everything takes longer. So if Monica had called me in the past and said, Nick, I want to refinance, I need some money, I want to be strategic with it, we'd set the closing date 2 to 3 weeks out, sort of thing. We work towards that closing date. Now we're setting it out 2 months. Now we can always pull it back, but it's just everything takes longer. So there's more and more and more opportunities coming up every day. We're getting products and promos and policies every day. As people adjust to this being the new norm, things are getting better, not worse. When it first hit, bang, it was a brick wall, like not lending, no rental properties, scaling back loan to values, really focusing on income. Every day, those policies and those programs start to open up and get better, not worse.
Right. Yeah, it's important that they keep working with us so we can keep moving. Otherwise, we will really go into this doom and gloom crisis. And it's been really generous of them to actually, I've never had that before, getting help before. I'm like, wow, help, this is incredible. All these amazing deferral programs that people can offer. Now, my question to you is, I know a lot of people have talked about the deferral programs and should I do them or shouldn't I do them? Do you think that this is something right now most people are getting about, I know they keep saying 6 months, but I've only gotten 3. And I think a lot of people I've spoken with have only gotten 3 months. Do you think there is a possibility of the government, if this thing expands on to 12 to 18 months, like Justin Trudeau was saying, and people really cannot go back to work, or we're still feeling these repercussions, that they might extend some of these deferral programs and even extend these CERB payments?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I think it'll be touch and go until we figure it out. So what we're seeing is 2 to 3 months in general on deferrals, sometimes a month at a time. What I predict is going to happen is, yes, there will be an extension of them for sure. So they will continue. Everyone will become circumstantial. So there was such a huge influx of requests at first. We were speaking to lenders that had backlogs of 30 and 50,000 calls and requests. Like, it's taken weeks for lenders to get through all of that. And as they've gotten through them, I think the conversations are more two-way now. So, at first it was like, yeah, 3 months. Okay, yep, 3 months. Okay, yep, 3 months. And now it's going to be, okay, hey, Monica, tell me about your situation. Well, I'm a real estate investor. I haven't got rent. We host seminars. We can't do seminars because we can't have groups. So my income's been affected. We have CRB, but I live in the GTA. Like, I think those conversations will be more.
You're depressing me, Nick.
I'm sorry. No.
Jeez, I'm going to get off this and start crying now.
It's optimistic. So, I think it'll be a situation where they look at it on an individual basis and say, you know what, Monica, let's postpone for another 6 months on your primary residence. Are you getting rents? I'm getting half them. Okay, Monica, how about we go interest-only payments on your other investment property mortgages? And I think that's probably where things are going to lead. So to answer your question in long form, 1, I think it'll be individual to circumstance, but yes, deferrals will continue to happen. And 2, I think that most lenders will revert to an interest-only payment instead of a principal and interest payment. And as you know, most mortgages these days with interest rates being low are 50-50 principal and interest. So it'll cut your payment in about half.
That's an amazing approach. So before we log off here, what is one tip that you would give someone out here watching as a mortgage specialist? What is one tip you have for all the viewers on how to navigate and move forward throughout this COVID-19 crisis?
So, I think I would have different advice for a general consumer and different advice for a real estate investor. So I'll speak specifically to the real estate investor, and I would say see the opportunity in the current times, because there is opportunity. There's a steady flow of money happening. Money is still available. Deals are still out there, and it's a perfect time to sit down and strategize, build out your plan, and think about, if this is going to happen in the real estate market, which is what everybody is predicting, how can I take advantage of that opportunity? How can I purchase in that opportunity? Am I ready for that opportunity? So I think, in the midst of all of the, the flurry of, scary media and fear mongering and uncertainty, you see the positive in it. Like, you and I chatted before our call on Saturday about how much our kids are loving this right now. My kids are outside riding their ATV. I think you just saw snow falling over my shoulder.
I did. I was very shocked with that.
We have tons of. Do you have snow where you are today?
No.
Okay, I'm going to show you this really quick. Okay. Let's see if I can show you.
Oh my gosh, what's on the ground?
That's white stuff.
Hideous.
I know.
Take it away.
And it's everywhere out there. It's everywhere. So my kids are loving this. We're doing our best for learning, but they have mom and dad 24/7. We're doing movie night every night. We pop popcorn, I think, every night, trying to make the best of it. So everything that you're doing in your personal life, make sure that you're doing in terms of your finances and your real estate investing as well. So, try and make the best of it, be optimistic, and build a strategy. So I think every single person who is interested in real estate investment and interested in finances should be connecting with a professional to speak about what the opportunity is in the market, and more specifically, what the opportunity is for them.
And that's why I value you working with you so much in your time, because we've done a few of these now. And at Real Property Investments, we really are aiming to be the real source to give you real answers of how we could support you during these times. You should always move forward in regards to wealth building, whether it's real estate, whether it's other types of investments, but you're not alone. You don't have to be by yourself trying to figure this out. And at Real Property Investments, we are providing these free webinars every Tuesday. We also have our Real Property Investment Member Club still happening rather than in person. We have one a week online, and these expand all across Ontario, which is very exciting. And then on top of that, we are tuning in live with the Real Property Report, where we're going to have experts like Nick and other of our experts in our field, because we have a full service deck of experts to give people the support that they need. And we're not here to sell you something or sell you information. We are here to provide you with the support, give you the education and empowerment so you could decide what is best for you. So if you want to learn more about Real Property Investments, hit the subscribe button of the YouTube channel, and you'll be notified when these free webinars are popping up, and they're going to be popping up all throughout the week, which is really exciting. Or visit us at www.rpinvestments.ca, and you'll learn more about us as well as all the events that we have going on. But thank you, Nick. I hope to see you soon. Always a pleasure, and stay safe, and in your case, stay warm.
Yes, exactly.
It looks pretty cold. Thanks, Nick.
It's a great day. Thanks, Monica. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.